Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. From mighty coursing rivers and lush green forests, to rolling hills and blue mountains, from great cities to sprawling farms, we are a state with many walks of life, many ideas and perspectives. The United States was born in Pennsylvania. The Declaration was signed here on July 4th, 1776. Washington crossed the Delaware from our shores and turned the tide of the war. 50,000 casualties fell on the field of Gettysburg. We are farmers and poets, teachers and patriots. We are Americans. But something in our great state is broken. Our democracy has been stolen from us. The values and founding principles of our country have been destroyed by Democrats, by Republicans, by whoever holds the power. But one group works to end this tyranny: the Minutemen and women answering the call of liberty. These are the voices of Fair Districts, PA, the voices of Pennsylvanians determined to end gerrymandering, determined to make our elections fair again, and let the people choose their representatives the way the Founding Fathers intended, instead of politicians carving out their voters.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Political gerrymandering. It's the greatest single blot on the integrity of our nation's electoral system, and it's high time we did something about it.
This is an issue of great importance, and to my mind, it's one of the most fundamental changes that we need in Pennsylvania. By ending gerrymandering, we would ensure that districts represent communities of interest. That makes sense. That would enhance the likelihood of more competitive races for the legislature and ensure that voters get to choose their legislator, not legislators choose their voters.
Speaker, good morning here. He represents Fair Districts, Pennsylvania. It's a coalition of citizens and organizations seeking to reform Pennsylvania's redistricting rules.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you today. I was asked to do a 10-minute session on fair districts, on gerrymandering, and everyone was so friendly when I walked in. I kind of was wondering, did you know what I was going to talk about?
Fair districts began in 2016, and I've been involved in them really since 2017. Gerrymandering is now something that was bubbling up in the news, kind of an afterthought for a lot of folks, me, myself included. Fair Districts PA is a nonpartisan grassroots organization. So while it may be that in Pennsylvania everyone is referring to the Republican gerrymander, it happens in other states as well under Democratic control. So really, I see it as a good government program. So no matter who's in charge, which party's in charge, they can't. The conflict of interest in drawing their own district lines is eliminated with efforts that we're trying to put forth.
Whether you are affiliated with a party or not, whether you vote regularly or not, this is something that affects you, and I hope that you will come away from this evening with a better understanding and feeling energized that we, the people, can actually make a difference. Okay, y'all got that? We can go home now, right? The problem is the politicians have the game rigged. Our concern is to present this issue and then help to guide our fellow citizens in solving this problem in a completely nonpartisan fashion.
Gerrymandering's been around for hundreds of years. Wherever there's politicians, there's going to be people trying to gain an advantage. Democrats have done it, the Republicans have done it. With a couple of changes that came about in the last 15 years or so, gerrymandering is not on steroids.
First thing, definitions. There's 3 real words you really need to know about when it comes to gerrymandering, and the first one is reapportionment. And that goes along with the census. So every 10 years there is a count of how many people we have in the United States, and we have to divide up the House of Representatives. And so each state gets their apportionment of that representation. Now we're actually losing population. So Pennsylvania is going to be losing at least 1 and possibly 2 seats in the next time, which means that the maps must be redrawn. Pennsylvania has a huge target on its back. And there's a few reasons for that.
Reapportionment occurs after the census every 10 years. So the next census is in 2020, and then Congress will determine how many
congressional seats each state gets. The House is set at 435 seats. Can't go above that, can't go below that. So states that are growing more quickly than Pennsylvania will probably get a Pennsylvania seat. So things shift around. So there's reapportionment. Congress tells the states how many congressmen they have. The states then redistrict.
The second word is actually redistricting. So, the first one is how many do you get, but then the second one is actually drawing those lines.
So the congressional districts are drawn as a simple bill that's introduced into our state legislature. It's just handed to the legislators. I was told, I don't know if this is true, we have some legislators here, although I can't see them because of the light. I've been told that they didn't actually see the map until just before the vote last time, that it was handed to them, they were asked to vote for it. There was not really time to kind of explore the realities of those districts, but that's how it's passed. At the same time, the House, State House, and Senate districts are also redrawn because population, again, is shifting from urban to suburban, or from rural to city, or from west to east. The population shifts across the state, and again, by law, the districts are supposed to be kept fairly even. So that is done differently.
And this is done presently by a commission. Somebody from the Senate majority and House majority, somebody from the Senate minority and House minority parties is appointed to this commission, and then the Supreme Court decides the fifth person. That fifth person, by the way, is the chairperson. And a chairperson has a lot of power. That fifth commissioner is appointed by agreement of those four initial appointees.
2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and they're supposed to decide on the 5th seats. They can never do that, and so the courts step in and appoint someone.
Right now, 5 people control this process, right? The 4 leaders, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and then supposedly the independent person that's supposed to be agreed on by both parties. They never can agree, by the way. When you control the power of the pen, when you got this pen, and there's only 5 of them, and they're able to carve out 203 districts and 50 senator seats, do you think they want to change? Do you want to give up that power? The only way they're going to give up that power is if the people force them to give up that power.
And the third term is the actual gerrymander. There's sweetheart deals. That's where the current legislature makes deals so that they stay in power. We always know it's very difficult to get into office, and incumbents have an advantage. That's why. But lately, the parties have been at war, and so now we're packing and cracking. When you pack people into a given geographic area to dilute the areas around, or cracking, and you see this a lot in urban areas where they crack up those votes and pull them out and move them into other areas.
Neither political party has a lock on brilliance or stupidity. Neither one. 50.5% of the voters in 2012 voted for Democratic candidates. 49.5% voted for Republican candidates. Democrats got 28% of the seats, and the Republicans got 72% of the seats.
We have no limits on PAC donations, lobbyist donations, funds raised by outside groups. National political forces can pour money into Pennsylvania in those 0 years in an attempt to flip Pennsylvania House districts, which is exactly what they did in 2010.
We have the largest legislature in the country. Because we have so many districts, there aren't that many people in one district. You can flood money in there, and 4 weeks before an election, just saturate every mailbox with mailers that skew the truth. They're negative for the opponent. So we are cheap. Our vote is cheap. We're a good bargain.
Interestingly, the Constitution of the Commonwealth says that these districts shall be composed of compact and contiguous boundaries, and unless absolutely necessary, no county, city, incorporated town, borough, township, or ward shall be divided.
I live in Lancaster County. In Lancaster County, there is a township, Lancaster Township. It is 6 square miles. 6 square mile township in Lancaster County. They found it absolutely necessary to divide Lancaster Township into 5 different state districts. Absolutely necessary.
Now in Berks County, there are 450,000 residents. Looking at those numbers, if there's no manipulation of boundaries, you would think we should end up with 1 congressman, because each congressman has to represent 700,000 people, and there's only 450,000 people in Berks County. Fact is, we have 4 congressmen. And keep in mind that our 4 representatives, congressional representatives, none of them live in Berks County. Don't let them tell you that we get better representation, because that's just not true.
4 doesn't mean 4 times better.
That's right. More means less.
If you are in District 7, how do you go to the committee meetings of 5 different districts, which have their own councils, and how do you go to all the picnics and softball games and, Boy Scout openings and get to know your constituents? You can't do it.
7th Congressional District in Pennsylvania. Look at this. I mean, it goes from Lansdale down through the western side of Philadelphia to the tip of Delaware, then out beyond Reading. They often refer to this as Goofy Kicking Donald, because it's Goofy Kicking Donald Duck. But I mean, just that's not, well, that is contiguous. It's not compact whatsoever. I mean, so that idea of a compact district, of having common interests in a compact district, that's gone. That's done because there are Republican voters in those streets and they draw around there.
And you see that little squiggly green thing that goes into Berks County? That's Reading. That's the city of Reading. So what they've done in this is they've taken the city of Reading and placed it representatively, placed it with the whole of Lancaster and part of Chester County.
Which is predominantly Republican, correct?
Correct.
So you've in essence wiped out any of the votes of the folks in Reading.
Correct.
If you look out in Berks County, here's Reading. It is one of the poorest cities in Pennsylvania. It has the most underfunded school district. It's in the 16th district with Lancaster County, which is all farms. Reading's been cracked away to put there. And so you figure, does Reading have a voice in the state legislature, in the congressional district? Who's representing their concerns?
Lancaster has an economy that's dominated by agriculture and tourism. And because of this, Reading is probably an afterthought to the congressperson who represents District 16. So Reading really doesn't get a lot of much, if any, representation.
I used to think up and say how proud I am that we've worked together, because 10 years ago in the Senate when I was there, we really did work together to solve problems. And then after the redistricting happened, it's like, what happened to the Senate? They don't even talk anymore. And it's almost like if you're from the other side, you're evil. Okay, so you might be a Democrat or Republican, but that doesn't make you a bad person, just because you're of one party or the other, but that's somehow how they feel.
Now, this is America. This is a wide range of opinions. This isn't blue, this isn't red, this isn't even purple, it's more beige. I mean, there are a wide range of opinions. These are the people in America that can register to vote. Well, half of that. This is the people in America that register to vote. And in the off-year election, a non-presidential election, about this many vote. Okay, so we've gone from here, wide range of opinion, to here, number of people that actually register, here, number of people vote in off-year elections, and then in primaries, you're down to 10, 12, 13, 20%.
The impact on voters. We're getting fewer choices in the primary and often no choice in the general elections. In Pennsylvania in 2016, 57% of our general election races had no other party opposition. So over half of our races were decided in the primary.
Nearly 50% of our races in Pennsylvania, in the general election, the person's running unopposed. So, I mean, why do they have to come to the middle? Why does anybody have to compromise? They're running unopposed. They get challenged. If they get challenged, it's going to be in the primary. We all know primary is the extremes of both parties. So we're just further distancing ourselves from this. We're not going towards a compromise solution. We're not representing everyone's interest in the district.
So when you have gerrymandered this way, the elections are now becoming primary elections. That really does disenfranchise both parties.
Primaries tend to be true believers, the base. And so you have this slice of America picking the candidates that is supposed to represent this slice of America. Is it any wonder that a lot of us feel disconnected from our elected leadership?
If you're an independent registered voter, you don't get to vote in the primaries here because we have closed primaries. So, incumbents without primary challengers, that's 86%. It seems like if you get elected to Pennsylvania's legislature, you're pretty golden.
So what's the impact on voters? Surprise! We feel legislators don't listen to our concerns but are unable to vote the legislators out.
Voter disenfranchisement. The votes don't count. Why should I bother to vote? I would love for everyone to vote and be interested in that. A lot of people don't feel that way.
Harvard Business School recently released an extensive 5-year study of U.S. economic competitiveness, and the study found that the biggest threat to overall productivity and shared prosperity in the U.S. is our crippled political system. And that the number one way they recommended fixing that was to end gerrymandering by having independent redistricting.
Policy is impacted because with compromise impossible, with extremes governing the parties, these moderate voices are devalued.
District 7, I used to be in District 7 until that thing happened. Now I'm not in District 7. I'm right in the middle of District 7, surrounded by District 7, but no longer in. I have to drive through District 7 almost to get anywhere, but I'm no longer in that. So something changed, right? I mean, there's been gerrymandering going on, there's been weird things going on, but if you look at what happened in 2011, something changed.
Why are we now more concerned about gerrymandering than ever? Because it's more precise than ever. With detailed mapping technology, the politicians can literally pick their voters.
It's now possible for anybody to know anything about anybody on your block. They know where you went to school, they know how much money you make, they know what you like to buy, they know what TV shows you watch. All of that data is accessible, and put it together with that mapping technology, you can do incredibly sophisticated things, which is why these lines are drawn in such bizarre ways.
The people who determine the congressional districts have these resources. They can figure out, this House has voted in the last 3 elections, and we can look at their Amazon searches, and we can look at what they're doing on Google, and we can figure out which way they're leading.
So they take all of that information and they can feed it into a computer program that allows them then to very precisely determine what the best district boundaries are for gerrymandering.
What happens is, as this is going on, there are people in Washington who are drawing the lines to squeeze out as many congressional seats as they can, and they plop those maps in the hands of the legislator who's in charge and say, this is the bill you're going to run through, and that's what happens.
Despite winning less than 50% of the vote in congressional races in 2012, the Republicans ended up controlling our delegation in Washington 13-5. A huge, outlandish majority. Now, what went on? Well, the top map shows you what went on. The districts were drawn as you've seen, and that disadvantaged Democrats who are concentrated in the major cities of the state. It left vast swaths of the state open for Republican control. Now, lest you think that this is somehow fair, the bottom map depicts what happened when I simply took the map drawing software and ran it the other way with exactly the same vote totals from 2012. And the result was, in this hypothetical application of the map, 13 Democrats and 5 Republicans. And when you can change political representation by tweaking a couple of numbers in a computer program so radically, that means something is wrong in our democracy.
We end up with divided communities, we end up with uncompetitive districts. And once you've got those two things going, then we end up with a whole lot of problems, and in the end, all of us are frustrated and angry.
In the United States, we're the only advanced economic country. We are the only ones that allow a legislature to draw districts. The ideal world, the voters choose their legislators. In reality, in the Commonwealth right now, the legislators choose their voters. In a true democracy, every vote should count. In reality, many votes are meaningless.
So the votes are wasted because they're ineffective, or they're wasted because they're surplus.
That has nothing to do with what's good for the people in those states. It has nothing to do with which legislators are serving their constituents and which aren't. It has everything to do with controlling Congress. And controlling Congress is a great thing. If you're a multinational company and you want regulation that serves your purposes, you want to control Congress.
So for 2020, they're ramping up and they're going to spend $125 million. But the Democrats are doing the same thing. We've got Advantage 2020. Unfortunately, we're only set for $70 million. But what's unfortunate is that either one of them are doing this at all.
We are ripe for all of that money coming into Pennsylvania. The Institute of Public Integrity, Center for Public Integrity, in 2015 gave Pennsylvania an F when it came to the integrity of our election process.
It's really damaging to our representative democracy. It becomes a plutocracy. It's the money, $1, one vote, instead of one person, one vote.
We have to change the process for redistricting. The solution is an independent commission. We have to remove politicians from having a direct hand in drawing districts.
This will require an amendment to the state constitution, and in this legislative cycle, 2017-2018, the first steps in amending the Constitution are SB 22 and companion bill HB 722.
House Bill 722 and the Senate bill would change it to the 11-member, nonpartisan redistricting commission, independent redistricting commission, like so many other states have.
The nonpartisan wish is that we don't have either party involved, that it's the people that decide where the districting lines are, not the politicians.
We're supposed to be Americans. We're supposed to care about democracy. We're supposed to care about each other's opinion, having a discourse, coming to agreement, compromising on those things where we can compromise. When we're talking about getting to the same place, it's just which road we're going to take. We're not supposed to be my team all or nothing.
What we want to do is eliminate gerrymandering to the benefit of all of us, because gerrymandering hurts all of us.
The timeline for success is tight because this is a constitutional amendment, which in Pennsylvania means that it can only happen when a bill passes in 2 consecutive legislative cycles and then passes a public referendum.
If we don't pull this off, we get 10 more years of crazy redistricting, and it's just going to be disgusting because you're going to have Advantage 2020 and Red Map 2020 duking it out. All this outside money is going to be coming into Pennsylvania. It gets so divisive. It's so partisan.
Now, if you think that if you happen to be a Democrat and you say, that is just god-awful, that's a terrible thing to do to Democrats, and you're a Republican saying, well, I can live with that. And some do. Just down the road in Maryland, flip it. Districts are drawn to favor the Democrats, and the Democrats have an overwhelming majority. Power will always do what it wants, and sometimes we're okay with it because it's our guys doing it, and sometimes we're not so okay with it when it's the other guys doing it. But as citizens, we are supposed to be in charge, but we can't be in charge unless you take charge.
What we're promoting has been done in California, it's been done in Ohio, Florida, and there have been true changes in everybody's everyday life.
This all depends on the citizens of Pennsylvania, and I appreciate all of the meetings. I went to a meeting in Allentown with 400 people. There's a picture on the internet of a meeting that Carol attended in Philadelphia with 800 people coming out to talk about redistricting. There's wonderful turnout tonight. There's been meetings in Montgomery County, 700 people. People are fired up all across the state. The citizens have to let their legislators know this is important. And then we have to change this process, and we have to change our Constitution in time for the 2021 census. We have to pass it this session and next session. If we do, the next time we draw districts, it'll be with an independent redistricting commission.
Wisconsin is also fighting gerrymandering. So there's been some interesting concepts about how to measure wasted votes, how to measure the efficiency gap in voting to say that this gerrymander is harmful. The only other larger swing state is really Florida. So there's incentive to come into Pennsylvania to control the process. We're going to see a lot of money thrown at Pennsylvania if nothing gets done. We're going to see non-stop ads in Pennsylvania if nothing gets done.
It's just absurd the way district lines are drawn to benefit political parties. It doesn't benefit us, the constituents. It benefits the parties alone.
Help us to look to the past with gratitude and to the future with hope. We remember this day those who have gone before us, who labored not for themselves alone, but with a vision of building for the future a better world than what they had known.
Here in Pennsylvania, we talk about the Republican gerrymander from the last one. Illinois talks about the Democratic gerrymander. Maryland talks about the Democratic gerrymander. It's not one party or other that has it. It's the party in control.
Your voices are being heard, and it's scaring some of the lawmakers. Some of the House members, Senate members, like, what do we do about fair districts? They're all over the place. They're calling us. They are. Good job. You got their attention.
And the objective is to have all of these expressions of support so that it counters the natural tendency of the party leaders in Harrisburg, who, after all, are the only ones with something to lose in this process. What we want to do is make sure that the voters are heard and that the party leaders know that their time is up on this one.
To me, it's not a Republican or a Democratic issue. It is a involved citizen issue.
We have a great team of folks across the state. We're having, somebody described us as the merry band of reformers, and that's what we are. We are engaging in democracy in a really new way. A lot of people who have never been to Harrisburg will be joining us next week in Harrisburg. People who have never done advocacy are eagerly learning how to visit legislators, nervously learning how to visit legislators. It's democracy in action. It's a great thing, and we invite you to be part of it, and thank you for being here tonight.